Welcome to Get Messy, the mindset space for creatives who want to build sustainable, successful careers without losing their sanity. I'm Maddie, professional performer of over a decade, future therapist, and the friend who will never BS you about what it takes to actually stay in the game. Today, I'm sitting down with Ana of Ana Builds Habits, a New York-based creator and speaker who helps people turn scattered ambition into focused action by designing their days around their identity, not their to-do lists. In this episode, we get into why habit failure is almost always a belief problem, how Ana went from inconsistent creator to building a brand that actually sticks, and what it really takes to balance a 9-to-5 job, wedding planning, and showing up creatively without burning out. We also talk about joy as a performance tool, the difference between creators and influencers, and why messy action almost always beats waiting until you're ready. This episode was incredible. I literally wanted to take notes while we were recording the episode because Ana shared so many juicy nuggets I wanted to start using on my own life instantly. She's the kind of person who makes you want to close this episode and go build something. Without further ado, please welcome my habit queen, Ana of Ana Builds Habits. Okay, so Ana of Ana Builds Habits, you are a New York City-based creator and speaker who helps people transform scattered ambition into focused action. You dissect the habits of the world's highest performers in business and culture and how someone can make them their own. Your goal is to help people stop building routines around their to-do list and to start designing their days around who they're becoming. Your content sits at the intersection of behavioral psychology, systems design, and lifestyle. You cut through the noise of hustle culture to deliver clarity, structure, and sustainable momentum. When you were thinking of the idea of Ana Builds Habits, what specific problem are you trying to solve with your platform? And what was the moment that made you want to go all in on building your platform?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. And I love the central theme that you have throughout all your episodes. To answer your question of why I chose to start Ana Builds Habits, first, it was an evolution of past creative endeavors that I'd had. But as I thought through exactly my own struggles that I had in the past, and what I kept seeing over and over from close friends of mine is that so many of us struggle with committing to habits because it's not a lack of discipline or even systems. It's deeper than that. It's because of an identity problem. And we try to build these routines on top of a version of ourselves that we haven't even fully committed to yet, as much as we may think so. It never sticks because we don't believe that we are maybe worthy or that we are capable of embodying an identity that requires specific habits or behaviors. And so that never works and the habits fall apart. And in my own journey of committing to new habits, for example, I learned basically how to run, for lack of a better term, early in my 20s. I had never been a runner before, and I had never stuck to that before. And I kept on hitting a wall every time I tried to do it. And I realized it wasn't because I was lazy or unmotivated. It's because I hadn't committed yet to the identity of being a runner. So what I always say is that the goal that you have or the intention that you have, that doesn't create the identity. The identity is really created first and foremost by the beliefs that you have, and then that creates the habits that make the goal or the intention come to life later on. So a lot of people think, okay, well, who do I become? What type of identity do I want to embody? And that asks another question, which is, how do I get clear on who I want to become? A lot of us don't know. A lot of us think that we know. And so Ana Built Habits is a creator brand that I wanted to build for those looking for ideas on who they wanted to become by understanding the habits and mindsets of the world's highest performers across business, sports, and culture. And these are people that we all look up to because they seem like they have it all together. They seem that they had like a North Star and a goal and they work towards that. But as I dig into the research of Emma Grede or Anna Wintour, I realized that the habits that they have are deeper than that. And a lot of the time it wasn't because, they woke up on a Monday or on January 1st and they decided to become the Emma Grede we know now, who's the founder of Skims or Anna Wintour. They just decided to take one step after the other. And the other part of sharing that out as well is because I'm learning as well. I'm learning with everyone that is on the same journey of building better habits, of what does it take to become who I want to be? And along the way, I like to share the frameworks, the habits that help me, who is a regular girl with a 9-to-5 that's planning her wedding and has a side hustle and has struggled with perfectionism and control in my 20s. Now, to answer your second part of your question of what was the moment that made me choose to start this path and this platform, and as I think about that, it wasn't really like a specific moment. It was just the way that I've always approached change and evolving as a human. And the reality is that I grew up across multiple countries. I was constantly the new kid. I was constantly adapting. And early on, I realized that, okay, what's going to help me adapt and what's going to help me manage change is structure and control. And that gave me stability. And that was a helpful way for me to build my life early on because it created a container for me to strive for achievement and get into the best schools and get into working in big tech by the time that I graduated in 21. But by that point, when I graduated college and started working in the corporate world, that structure and control, instead of helping me evolve, it became a way to self-sabotage. And it was a way for me to try to control everything, to try to be perfect in everything. And I realized that the issue here was that I was structuring my life too much, that I had so much ambition and drive, and I was trying to control so much, but also the ambition and drive that I had was being contained by this like container that I built for myself that wasn't allowing me to explore different opportunities. And I started to then think about, okay, well, what did I love to do when I was younger? And what I loved to do when I was younger was create. And I decided to get back to creating. Started first with a newsletter. After 2020 and 2021, I started with a newsletter and I started to get back into creating, which I really enjoyed. That evolved into a podcast. And then last year, I went full into creating short form content that, again, dissects the habits of the people that I admire and shares knowledge that I gain from and that I hope others gain from as well. Because at the end of the day, this is also a self-discovery project for myself to get back to my roots of creating and to get back to those curiosities I had when I was little. So it's deeply personal and it's also deeply in service of someone who struggled with the same struggles I've had in the past.
There's so much I love about this, Anna. One, I think you know how you see someone online and you're like, I wonder how they are in real life. Not that we're obviously virtual right now, but I'm like, she is exactly what I thought she would be from your content. So that's like just a joy for me because I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I've looked at so much of your content. And one of the things I love is, like you said, you are able to bring these amazingly successful women and kind of break down their habits and how their habits align with their identity. But we're also watching you and you're letting us in on your journey of doing the same. And I recently found you through the Activations newsletter, which is Activations is an app that you and I both use. And it's so funny, Anna, because I almost deleted it, or just like kind of like going through and like cleaning up. And there was something about me. I was like, oh no, wait, like this looks interesting. Let me kind of in the midst of my morning and getting ready for my day, look through it and just really was captivated by you and by your energy. Went to Instagram and looked up Anna Builds Habits, and you had this piece of content and it's very much aligned with what you were just talking about. And it was, you spent $10,000 in different types of coaching, mindset coaching, things to help better yourself. And you shared the three most tangible things that you learned from all of this coaching you received. And one of them is very aligned with your mission of helping people get in touch with their identity first, and then building out actions that are aligned with their identity rather than exactly what you just described, us kind of maybe even having discipline and doing these actions, but they feel scattered. They don't feel grounded and aligned with the person that we're trying to become. So it's very easy to kind of give up on them after a while. They don't feel purposeful for like what they're actually rooted in. And you used yourself as an example. You were taking actions of a content creator, but you weren't embodying the identity of a content creator. And you felt like once you did that, you really unlocked the actions you should be taking. So can you walk us through what your habits and actions of content creation were before you embodied the identity of a content creator, and what's shifted since you've claimed that identity for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, what a powerful question. And I love that you found me through activations because actually that's been one of the tools that I've used to help shape my mindset to show up as a creator and to show up consistently as well. But, you know, as I mentioned to you, Anna Built Habits has been an evolution of past creative endeavors. And the past creative endeavors, the newsletter I mentioned, the podcast, didn't stick because I didn't believe that I was a creator or that I was creative even. And the habits and actions of that were a clear reflection of that lack of belief. Inconsistent posting, inconsistent clarity of what exactly I was saying, to who I was saying it, and also like this just constant friction of what will people think of me? What will my friends say about this? And the shift came when I stopped waiting for permission from someone to tell me, you know what, Anna, you're a creator, so go and create. And part of the video that you mentioned of the $10,000 in coaching, I'm so happy I did that. It's been so helpful. But I realized that I had a pattern early on in my 20s of seeking a coach or a therapist to give me the answers to something. And the answers came actually last year when I just was like, I'm not working with a coach anymore, with anyone that I think will give me the answers, and I'm going to give myself the answers. And the only way that I give myself the answers was by giving myself the permission to call myself a creator, to create, because I had created one post. And because I had created one Instagram account handle. And from that, it was kind of a waterfall effect. I then matched my mindset, my thoughts to my intention, and then my habits and actions followed that. So I finally, kind of got fed up with myself, I have to admit. And I was just like, I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid and I'm going to call myself a creator. Of course, I did, tactical things that enabled the thoughts of I am a creator, I'm worthy of creating, this feels good to me, it doesn't matter what others think of me. That helped me think that way. Some of the tactical things that I did, as small as they are, they really were impactful. I removed my personal Instagram from my phone because constantly checking that was a way of me thinking about what people in my personal life would think about my creator brand that I was creating. I also gave myself the permission to create more in the morning than consume. And then I also just started to call myself a creator with others that were also creating. And every time that I would do that, I expected them to be like, wait, you're not a creator, or wait, why are you calling yourself that? And I never received any of that feedback. It was always, that's awesome. What are you creating? How can I support you? And I realized like it was never that there were others judging me or that I was surrounding myself with other people that didn't support me. I realized it was just me that was holding me back because of the lack of belief, the lack of identity I had. And I have to admit, like, this is still something that I have to think through on a daily basis. It's like, you don't ever just say and wave a magic wand and say, okay, I'm a creator. Like, I'm done choosing this identity.
And then the belief appears, right?
I wish it worked like that. It's something that I at least have to work on a daily basis of reminding myself when friction comes up, okay, like I acknowledge these thoughts, but who am I choosing to show up as right now? Am I choosing to show up as my old self who didn't believe that she was a creator, or my current self and my future self who is a creator? And the best piece of advice that the mindset coach that I worked with actually gave me was, when you're reflecting on a disappointment that you had of, oh shoot, I didn't show up how I wanted to show up as, or I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Instead of asking yourself, why am I like this? What happened in years past that made me be this type of person? Like, why? What's helpful instead to ask yourself is, how would the person I wish to become respond to this disappointment, respond to this situation? And that, to me, is a useful way to move yourself out of analysis, overthinking, and into action. There are moments, of course, it's helpful to think of the why, maybe in therapy, but when you're in the process of creating and becoming a new self, what's most helpful is to think about how the person you wish to become would respond to that disappointment or situation.
Anna, I feel like we've only been talking for such a short amount of time. And even if people just heard that, it's like therapy in a bottle in such a positive way, like everything you just said. I come from a background in the entertainment industry, and something I've seen so many people struggle with, and you just hit on it, is that like calling themselves and embodying and believing like I'm an actor or I'm a writer before someone has booked them on a job, before someone has paid them for their work, before someone has essentially validated and given them permission to be like, yes, I'm gifting you now this title of actor. And I've heard that my whole career, like, you have to believe it and embody it before someone is giving you that permission. So I was just thinking back to so many moments of my own career. And when I see younger people coming into the industry, that being such a big piece of their beginning stages of their journey. And once they're able to adopt that title and that identity for themselves, so much shifts and changes within their approach.
And one example I'll give to this is, a lot of us can fall into the trap of thinking, when I book my first acting gig or when I run the marathon, then I will be this. But Coco Gauff, for example, I like to use her as an example.
Oh,
Yes,
my
I
fave.
really, really
I'm
admire her.
obsessed with
Yeah.
her.
She went into the French Open last year in 2025. And with a really interesting story, she went in feeling nervous, but also feeling excited. And she later shared after she won the French Open that the night before she wrote, "I will win the French Open 2025," over and over and over and over again. And that writing, that affirmation helped her embody the identity of a champion, which then helped her actually win the French Open. So instead of waiting to win the French Open and then claim herself a champion, she did that backwards. She reverse engineered her success by first using the power of affirmations of, "I will win the French Open," and then showing up on court like a champion, playing like a champion, and then winning the French Open.
And I feel like that's exactly your point of like her embodying the identity and then kind of doing what that identity does. Like, so it's like the identity first, actions and habits second. And in you claiming that identity of content creator, of someone who is creative, someone who's creating this content, what does your week look like as a content creator? What are all of your responsibilities? How do you organize your time and your habits to get everything done? Not only to just create the content, but also find new opportunities. You do a lot of speaking and other ways to grow your business.
I love that question because I'm always so curious about how people spend their time and how they design their days and their weeks. But for me, it varies. I mean, I have a 9 to 5, I work a corporate job. I'm also planning my wedding. I'm a creator. I'm growing and learning as a creator. So I try to match how I spend my time to my values. My core values, they don't shift depending on the season, but sometimes my priorities change depending on the season I'm in. My current values or my core values are 1, my health, 2, my relationships, and 3, creating. But my priorities of this season of my life currently are evolving my career and expanding myself professionally, opening up doors for opportunity and luck. And as a result of that, I design my days as much as I can, of course, with my corporate job around how I can architect a life, a week, a day where not only am I honoring my values, health, moving as much as I can, relationships, spending quality time with my fiance, at least doing one piece of creating a day, 1 hour of creating a day. And then, of course, finding pockets of opportunities to expand my career, expand myself professionally. More tactically, what that looks like is I design my days around my energy levels and when I think best. So the mornings are really like my peak of energy, creativity, and that's really reserved for exercising and creating. The afternoons are usually, after work, spending time with my fiance, maybe finishing up a little bit of my corporate job work, or maybe doing some work that's less creative, that doesn't require as much brain power, but is still important to my creator brand or important work that I'm doing for my wedding that I'm planning. So it really depends, but it's the core tenets of how I spend my time are around my values, my priorities this season of my life. And as well as when I'm at my peak, I reserve those hours of the day for what really matters to me at that moment.
You and I are very similar in energy. Like, I know my morning, I'm like, that's when I'm doing my writing. That's when I work out. I'm like, if it does not happen then at 3 p.m., I can't, I won't. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I love all of that. I talk to people often about it's not just, oh, I want to do this thing. It's like, let's look at your day for your energy levels. So I relate so much to that. And you just brought up Coco Gauff. You've studied so many successful women in all different areas of, they might be entrepreneurs, they might be athletes, actors. And out of all the women you've studied, who has the habits you feel most connected to, or whose habits do you feel like are most aligned for your personal and professional lifestyle?
Emma Grede. She's the co-founder of Skims. She's a podcast host, Aspire with Emma. Have you heard her? Have you listened to her podcast?
Love her
Yes,
podcast. I
yes.
love her podcast. And what's so funny is there's a lot of always talk about saturation. There's so many podcasts. There's so many podcasts about businesses, but everyone brings their own special sauce to it. I feel like even the way she interviews, she's got like that special Emma Grede sauce that I'm like, the way she asks questions, the way she interprets what someone's saying is so unique to her. So I love her podcast.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm currently in a season where I'm trying to consume way less and create way more. But there are a few like pieces of content and media channels that I do not, cut myself back on. And hers is one of those because I do think she has a very, very powerful way of interviewing. And her habits actually match, I think, the person that she is. And she's unapologetic about who she is, how she lives her life. And I love that. It's so inspiring and refreshing and gives hopefully many women, I know it does to me, permission to be okay to voice out loud how we actually run our lives. And one thing that she says, one of the habits that she has is she runs her household like a military operation. And I wholeheartedly relate to that because I run my life and my home with my fiance in a similar format of, there are specific times for things, there are structures, and there is, of course, like containers for how things are done. I obviously I'm not near where like I was when I was in early 20s where it was like toxic to a point, but it does help me to be more efficient with my time. So I wholeheartedly relate to that. And then the second thing, which you and I probably love about Emma, is that, she's an early bird. She loves her morning. She knows that she's at her peak in the morning and therefore she uses it to the best of her ability. And she loves to work. And I love to work too. I love to be ambitious and to use the drive that I have to create and to bring value to the world. And you can clearly tell that she has that as well.
This is so fun for me, Anna. Like, I feel like I'm learning so much even just being here with you, which is so spectacular when that happens. You brought up your fiance and you brought up like the household you guys have together. And I think a lot of people, I'm married. My husband and I have been together for 8 years. And so I'm much more type A. I think because of the entertainment industry, I've had to learn structure and then major flexibility because things are always kind of urgently being thrown in different directions and you have to shift and still perform. My husband is much more type B, but he also works as a producer. So he's very good at strategy, very good at managing time, schedules, people, all these things. But when you're learning to combine those two things into a household, I see a lot of my friends or other people struggle with that because it's like two people who, like, the reason that they may blend and bond is because they're kind of opposing personalities, which is what they like about each other. But now they're needing to structure their time and their space to still connect and have quality time, but also efficiently do the things that both parties want to do and like achieve both of their goals. Do you have any, I guess, advice or tips of how that worked for you and your fiancés? Because it seems like you guys have a system together so that you both get what you need done.
I mean, it starts with 100% like transparent communication and honesty. If one person doesn't feel as supported in an area, or if one person feels like, they've been pulling a little bit more of their weight that week, and sharing that out loud, I think we've been able to create this dynamic in our relationship where everything is shared with the other. The good feelings, the bad feelings, everything. In that way, we're on the same page about where someone needs support, where someone is killing it. And that really allows for a good household. It's not specifically answering your question around like what systems do we have, but communication is the number one thing that allows us to then be like, hey, we know that we have to take out the garbage on Wednesdays, Mondays, and Sundays. It's your turn to do that this week. Could you do that? We're not afraid to bring that up because we know that the other person's equally invested in household management as the other. And especially as women, I think I've definitely felt in the early parts of when we moved together that I was taking on way more of the household work than my fiance. And at first, I didn't say anything. I felt resentment. I was angry. And finally, I was like, wait, he can't read my mind. And he's also pushing me to share what's on my mind because I've been like giving him the silent treatment. And since then, I was like, okay, you know what? We have to just communicate and be open with one another where one person needs help or one person is okay with taking on a little bit more because the other person has a busy work week. So it all goes back to communication.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Anna, and you answering that question. Because I think so many people, it's like, okay, I feel like identity, then build the actions. Like, I could do that for myself. Now, how do I do that copacetically with another person that I'm sharing my life with? And so I love that. And then that allows you guys to, again, be super transparent and pivot as a team with whatever needs to happen. Going back to the successful women that you've studied, out of all these different women and you're looking at their habits, were there any habits that shocked you or surprised you?
I didn't do a specific habits breakdown on her, but I did a mindset breakdown, which is a new series that I'm launching. But Alyssa Liu, did you watch her? The Olympian, the figure skater?
Oh, my husband was like trying to be really nice and supportive, but he's like, when do the Olympics end? It's like all day, every day is like background noise as I was working. The Olympics were on. I think she's phenomenal. And I saw your post about her and really, really liked that
Yes,
post.
and for the listeners that may not be familiar with Alyssa, she is a young Olympic figure skater who so beautifully embodied what it means to be in flow and joyful in her process of figure skating, which I think a lot of us in the creative fields can relate to creating. And in her interviews, whether it was before the Olympics or after the Olympics, she was so consistent with her mindset and her attitude of how she approached the Olympics, which was all like focused on joy and having a good time. And a lot of people resonated with that statement. Now, of course, there are some folks who are saying like, well, you can only get to that once you've like trained so much in which you can now enjoy like the fruits of your labor. And then the other camp says, well, no, you can only get to that and create and train sustainably if you find joy. So it's kind of interesting to see the debate online of how one group thinks differently, whether it's right or wrong. But what I found really refreshing that I hadn't seen many people speak about, especially such high performers, is the joy of the process and seeing it so beautifully in practice. I think we hear of it a lot in theory of like, you should enjoy the process, you should find it fun, etc. But she so beautifully embodied what it means to be joyful and to enjoy the process when she was figure skating. And you could tell in her performance, in her face. It was so cool.
Oh, I'm getting like electric tingles like all over me thinking about it because it was so infectious and you saw someone, yeah, just really, really choose joy over a result, over anything else. And you're making me think again back to the entertainment industry, Anna, of I think that I was recently talking to one of my actor friends and him and I were kind of talking about how when we first discovered acting, there was so much joy because you're like this new thing and oh my God, I found something to express myself. And there was so much freedom and joy. And then kind of as you start learning it, it was like, oh, now I feel like okay, cool. I'm like learning these tools, but I also feel like rules or expectations of like how I want to feel or how I want this to go. There was like that sticky period where then, and I'm wondering, I wish Alyssa Liu was here so we could ask her, but she had that moment where she decided to retire and then kind of reclaimed the joy and like was able to come back and be like, I'm doing this on my own terms. I do have the toolbox and the tools, but I'm shifting it. I'm doing it the way I want to. And I'm choosing joy first and foremost. And him and I both kind of expressed kind of that same journey of getting on the other side of that sickiness where things felt too rigid, where you were trying to do the right thing and trying to fit that mold and fit the expectations of what like a professional actor does and what a successful actor does. But there was joy lost. And so once there was the permission to find it again, now you're like, okay, I have all the tools, but now I'm able to like decipher how to approach it and how I
Yeah.
arrive to even use the
No, I mean,
tools.
it's so true. I think that resonates so deeply with me and also with people who may not be actors, but or may not be in the creative field, but are doing something that they first thought was for just pure joy. And then it becomes kind of like a job. And now they're performing for achievement or performing for a specific outcome. And that's kind of the double-edged sword, maybe that people think of, oh, well, if I embody the identity of a professional actor or a professional creator, then that's going to take the joy out of it. But I actually want to kind of argue that because the only way one to build the sustainable aspect of the habits that a professional actor or creator has is by choosing to see yourself as a professional actor, professional creator, professional runner, whatever identity you want to embody. But to also remember that the only way that this is sustainable is if there's joy, if there's some lighthearted aspect to it. And I'm encountering something in that right now of, I started all in. like full throttle on Anna Built Habits last year. And it was so fun at the beginning because it was just, the world was my oyster. I felt like I was really bringing new creative ideas that I hadn't put out into the world. And now a year in, I'm like, whoa, there are a lot more speaking requests. There are a lot more expectations, self-imposed or not, of Anna Built Habits. And I remind myself, wait, like one, I asked for this. Like it's a privilege to be having this. Also, two, this is just part of the process of a professional creator and a creator who's building out a business. And then three, remember this is fun. Like you enjoyed this, like otherwise you wouldn't have started it. So it's interesting how sometimes things start out as like pure fun and joy, and then they can kind of take twists and turns. But the real sustainable piece is just remembering the joy, the process that is part of the creating and the bringing something to life. And then the fact that the only way to make this sustainable is if there's also some levity included in the process.
That's such a great segue, Anna, into, because again, you're talking so much about, again, they always say like pressure is a privilege. It's like, oh, I asked for this, but oh my gosh, now that I'm here at the moment, this new level where I'm like taking all the things that I've learned with me, but now I'm looking up at all of the things I need to keep learning to keep growing. Do you think that there's aspects of being a content creator that people romanticize? You can answer that question. I feel like that's one part of it, is like, what do people romanticize about being a content creator, and even like you're saying, the growth of speaking engagements? Or is there anything that's surprised you about entrepreneurship with your content creation, speaking, all of the things that you're doing?
I think a lot of people conflate influencers for creators, and they're different. I think influencers are a lot more focused on their image and selling a story or a narrative about their lives and bringing the viewers along throughout all parts of their lives. Whereas creators, especially creators that I like to surround myself by, are business owners, they're entrepreneurs, and they're bringing into the world an idea of how to better your finances, or how to be a better salesperson, or even how to eat more mindfully, whatever it is. And that is often conflated with the idea that, oh, that means that you are going to a bunch of events and that you have so much free time and that you are just posting outfit pictures on your Instagram, which is maybe the case for influencers and that's their job. For creators, it's a lot different. And the differences I don't think are as known in the mainstream world outside of the creator economy. And so people think that, oh, you're a creator and you're going to so many events, you're getting all these free items and PR boxes. But I think most of the time that tends to happen for influencers, not as much as creators. And then what surprised me the most about it is that, like anything, you have to build a skill set. Like, no one is born a creator or an entrepreneur. No one is born a runner, an actor. Everything comes with a learning curve. And I knew that going in. I knew it in theory. I just didn't know it as well, like in practice, because I hadn't started the journey of creating. And it's been really interesting to remind myself that, it's okay to be a beginner. Like, you're in this for the long run. So give yourself some grace. The same way that I mentioned earlier, I started to learn how to run in my early 20s. And I gave myself so much grace and compassion when I was learning how to run, and I had to stop after a few minutes. And now I've done 2 marathons, and the same grace and compassion that I gave myself at the beginning of my running journey is helping me bring that into content creation, into entrepreneurship, to be like, hey, you're going to get to where you want to go. You're going to get to the habits that you want to get to. Just like have a little bit of like compassion for yourself right now.
Totally. I'm thinking back to a business coach that I've worked with before, and because we see so much online and it kind of seems like everybody has it figured out. I think it's so easy to compare your day 1 to someone's day 20 or someone's day 1000. And she would ask that question like, okay, well, how long do you plan on doing this? And people would be like, well, I hope forever. Like, I love, just like, great. So this is like 2 seconds and like the whole forever. It's like exactly the marathon. This is like 2 seconds in the marathon. So you're like, okay, I could breathe for a second. This is not that big of a defining moment outside of me. Just keep going. Me just like keep pushing through the uncomfortability. You brought up right then building habits even for yourself. And in my eyes, you are the queen of habits. What are some, I don't want to say bad habits, but like maybe unfavorable habits that you've either had to break or you're currently in the process of breaking to help you keep achieving the success that you know you're capable
Well,
of?
I really appreciate you saying that. It means so much. So thank you. But yeah, I mean, we're all human. We've all have negative patterns that aren't serving us or have not served us. I'm certainly in that camp. I've had many patterns, habits that I've broken or that I'm currently trying to break to become who I want to be. Two examples that come to mind that were part of my early running journey, as I mentioned, where in the beginning, I would only run in the mornings. I had this limiting belief that was like, I can't run in the afternoons. Like, I just can't. Like, my energy is at its best in the mornings. I kept hanging on to that. And I just, one day I was like, let's just try an afternoon run. Let's just go and do like 2 miles. And I really enjoyed it. And I was like, wait, I can also run in the afternoons. Why can't I just incorporate it into my journey? So I started to do that. And same with running in the rain. I would see it raining outside and I'd be like, oh, nope, can't run. And then I did one run in the rain and I was like, wait, it's actually really fun. And it's the same in some ways with creating, that I'm not negative habit or bad habit, but it's a reminder that I have to constantly think about is, yes, my peak creativity is in the morning. But if for some reason I have a coffee chat in the morning or I have to get into my office earlier than usual and I can't create the time or the container to create, then I move it to the afternoon and it is what it is. Like, I am going to create. It just, the work has to get done. The other habit that is a lot harder for me to break right now in this season I'm in is that rest is okay. I am so restless and I'm always doing and going places and doing so many things that I forget that I can just sit on the couch and do nothing. And that is a harder pattern habit to break, not to act like the victim, but I do think that your environment influences so heavily your behavior and your actions. And being in New York, everyone's always doing, hustling, hustling, hustling. And when you're not doing something, I often feel like, oh, well, am I behind? Am I optimizing? And it's a pattern. It's a constant reminder that I remind myself of, like, you know what? It's okay to not do anything. It's okay to just rest and sit on the couch.
That's, I think, one that so many people relate to. I lived in LA for a long time. I have a friend who just moved to New York, and there is this weird, like, I have this time right now. I should be using it for something to like push myself further. Like, why can I not be creating something while I'm on the couch? But knowing that rest, I'm right there with you. That's been like a theme of 2026, is to like very consciously build in periods of rest and almost be like, even if I'm a little bored right now, that's probably a good thing because I'm so used to being so stimulated by my surroundings, what I'm working on, the people in my life, all of these things, that it's actually probably good that my brain goes to like as close to zero as it can right
Totally.
now.
And if anyone can relate to this feeling, one tactical strategy I have for this that I create on my calendar is a time block that says like free time, just free time. And that is a way for me to be like, okay, I have it scheduled on my calendar. That means that everything else is taken care of as well. I can be okay with just having free time and not doing anything.
I love that so much. And it's so funny because I've had a very, very busy, like pretty much until Thursday at 4:30 p.m. It's been a very, very busy week. And tomorrow I have a workout class and then a couple of things. And I'm going to actually take that. Cause I'm like, I actually have time to rest and I need to because it's been such a chaotic week. And there's like things going on this weekend. So I'm like, I'm going to put it in my calendar. That's such a great tip to be like, I see it there. I see the blank space. And I know there's like a huge chunk of it that should be for rest, but I'm already fighting that internal force inside of me. So like right after we get off,
Do it. Do it.
first thing I'm going to do is put that in my
Totally.
calendar.
And you know what I also have started to do? Like sometimes, like, of course, like doom scrolling has gotten the best of me. So I was like, you know what?
We've all been there
I'm
for
just
sure.
going to schedule a doom scrolling session, like 15 minutes in the afternoon when I have like the itch to doom scroll. And then for some reason, just knowing that I have 15 minutes allows me to be like, all right, those 15 minutes finished up. Now I can do something else. And it doesn't keep me doom scrolling. It's like, just do it for the period of time that you've allocated to it. And then that also prevents me from like doom scrolling earlier on in the day and being like, you know what? I have that time in the afternoon. I'm just going to wait for that time to be on my phone and just scroll.
Totally. As opposed to you kind of wanting to, like you said, reach for it, but you're like, no, 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 I'm good. I know that I have that time later on to like indulge in what that
Exactly.
is. So much, Anna, of what you're doing is it's new, right? It's like we get to like a certain level of like, okay, now I feel more comfortable with this element of speaking or this element of content creation and putting myself out there. And then you're introduced to the next level and the next level. And what that makes me think of is there's a newfound confidence from all of the actions that you've taken and them kind of compounding over time. And then there's also possibly doubt of like, oh, but I'm still going into this new thing that I've never experienced before. What do you do when confidence and doubt show up simultaneously?
Yeah. For anyone that's starting something new, this will come up consistently. A few things that come up with me when you ask this question. One is I go back to that question of how would the version of myself that is who I want to be respond to the doubt or to the lack of confidence? How would that version think about the thoughts that they're having? Or what actions would they take? I always use that as an anchor to remind myself that there is a version of me who would respond in a different way than maybe my current self. And that really, really helps me, honestly, to be like, okay, I can have the choice and the agency to choose to respond differently. I also think that all of us at some point have been beginners in some way, shape, or form. If you can't think of anything, go back to like when you were a little kid and you were learning how to play a sport or even learning how to walk. We were all beginners at some point. And for me, what I look back to that helps me respond to moments of lack of confidence and doubt is when I was running and when I was starting to run, when I was starting that journey of this is really hard. I've never run more than like 2-3 miles, but I want to do this for myself because I want to feel a specific way. I want to experience the runner's high. I want to see what this unlocks for me. And I go back to that example of my running journey often to remind myself, like, I've been a beginner in other moments of my life. How did I respond to those moments when I felt doubt, when I felt unworthy, or when I didn't have the confidence? And then I use how I respond to those moments to respond to the specific situation. So it's interesting because we've all can go use something that we've done in the past, especially when we were in the beginning stages, and use that as the blueprint to help us respond to this specific moment.
That's so cool, Anna, because what it makes me think of is almost like the anchor of resiliency. Like we forget that we are resilient and we have been in our lives before resilient, even if it's in a different arena. Like I did my first half marathon last year and I think about that a lot. So I love that you're using the running metaphor because it's such a tangible thing to tap into when I think back to like the times where we live on the East Coast, like right by the beach, where there's times the wind is like almost knocking your feet out from underneath you and you're like, I'm supposed to run 10 miles today. And I'm like, well, what if the day of the marathon it's like this? Like I might not have a choice. I might have to run 13 miles when it's like this. But I think there's so many times I tap back into, oh, like where are the examples and the evidence that I've done this before in my past, even if it's not the same arena, and to be like, oh, I'm resilient. Like I've pushed through and done those things. So I love that kind of anchoring in your past resiliency to remind yourself, like you've been here before many
Totally.
times.
You've been here before, and also you've done hard things. I went to a talk last year with a female entrepreneur who's built a couple of businesses, is a serial entrepreneur at this point, and she mentioned something about how she approaches new challenges, which has nothing to do with reading more business books, with networking, with mentorship. It has to do with doing something hard. And what she started to take on as she was entering her new venture was weightlifting. And I was like, whoa, that is awesome. Like she started to do something completely different from the field of the entrepreneurial industry venture that she was getting into to build her confidence in a different arena and use that to talk to herself and say, girl, you're lifting like 50 pounds, 100 pounds. If you can do that, you can do this as well.
I love how there's kind of that correlation too, maybe between a physical challenge that gets us out of our head, but into our bodies. Like you used the marathon example, I used the half marathon example. she uses weightlifting. And so I wonder if there's some correlation between the two to kind of, because her saying that, like, if you can lift these 100 pounds, like, you can go do this business negotiation. Like, you just did something way harder earlier. So that's so fascinating. Like, I wonder if there's some sort of correlation between the two.
I just don't know the scientific evidence
Yeah,
for it.
something for you to look up. In our last like little bit of time, Anna, I've had so much fun with you. We're going to kind of get into some more rapid fire questions. So before we get into those, you talked about kind of being in this period of more creativity and creation versus consumption. And even in that, we all know what it's like to hit that creative wall where we're like, I know what to do because I'm in the motion of doing it, but I don't particularly feel inspired. I don't really feel motivated. I'm questioning if like what I'm saying has any validity or a tangible thing that someone can take with them. What do you do to inspire yourself to carry on when you're hitting a wall, either with your content creation or your business? What do you do to recharge your creativity?
The first and most helpful thing I do is I put down the phone and I stop consuming. I stop consuming either the podcast, as helpful as it may be, even if it's Emma Grede, I put it down and I choose to not consume anything because often that will clutter my thoughts more than clarify anything. And I also, if I want to cultivate more creativity, if I want to get more clarity, the best thing I can do is listen to my own thoughts instead of listen to someone else's thoughts or someone's opinions. So I try to put down the phone. I also installed this new habit for myself in the mornings, which is no consumption. I used to listen to podcasts all the time. I used to watch like Instagram or TikTok in the mornings. And then I was like, you know what? This is not helpful for me before going into my time block of creating content because I have everyone else's ideas. I don't have my own going into either scripting a video or filming a video. So no consumption there. The one thing I do have is consumption with reading, a little bit of reading here and there to get me in that mindset. And activations is what I do allow myself to consume because it's not necessarily like digesting someone else's thoughts. It's helping me think through my thoughts. So that's one. The other is movement. Again, like the connection to body here and creativity is huge. Anecdotally speaking, like when I'm moving, I feel more creative. My best ideas come when I'm on a run. I often feel like I have to pull out my notes app after the run and just like write down everything that comes with that. So it's those two small things that are always like my anchors when I'm in that rut of feeling not creative. But I do try to not let that get to me and get back on my rhythm and my consistency and move forward because a friend once told me, messy, imperfect action is better than inaction. And even if you're not at the peak creativity that you want to be, you can still move one step ahead. Even as small, even if it's like a tiny step, you're still moving forward and you're still creating something, even if it's a little messy and imperfect.
That makes me think of what you said too, Anna, of like, okay, I try to do the creativity in the morning, but if I can't, I have my hour later. It might not feel the best. It might not feel as good as when it's in the morning, but it's there. And I know it's there and I'm doing it regardless. And I'm going to like push through and power through and like whatever comes of it, that's like what that is today. And that's like that one small step forward. And I just saw a quote too, where it was, if you're delivering something into the world that feels like perfect, like it's shiny, the bow is tied on, it's beautiful, they're like, you waited too long. Like there were so many iterations of this that were so helpful for so many people. And like you waited too long to put this out into the world. People wanted that messy and imperfect. And this leads us perfectly into, I call them rapid fire-ish questions. They can't be answered with just like one word, but the title of the podcast is Get Messy because the journey is messy, the process is messy. And that's usually the part, sometimes we try to fight, but it's usually the most beautiful part of everything. What is the messiest thing about you?
I love just like the whole theme of your podcast of the messiness and embracing it. I think it's so unique and it's so, I'm able to be like, okay, it's okay to be a little messy. It's okay for things to be a little chaotic here and there. I have to say the messiest thing about me are probably my thoughts. I feel like I'm constantly like having so many thoughts. If I'm like in a meeting for my corporate job, I will often have like a thought here and there about something else. And I'll be like, whoa, that doesn't have anything to do with the meeting. Also, like just write it down so make sure you don't forget it. or even at night, I'm like thinking, and I need to stop thinking in order to go to sleep. So I'll keep like a notepad next to my bed to just like brain dump everything because it's a little chaotic in there right before I go to sleep. And then that way it's really helpful to fall asleep. So my thoughts are definitely right now what's messy.
I feel you so hard on that. That's why, like, the notes app on my phone, or even there's so many times because it'll be on a run. It'll be while I'm making my husband coffee and my tea. And I'm like, where did I put that one thought? So I'm like, I have to get it out. Otherwise, it'll drive me crazy. But I'm like, oh, there's 18 million of them all day long. And I'm like, which part of my notes app? Where did I write that down? So that's smart too. I've started recently doing that also with the notepad by my bed, just to be like, yeah, because of course I'm like laying down. I'm like, the time to like go into slumber. And my brain is like, what about this? What about this? What about this cool idea? So I feel you on all of that. What do you feel like you're still figuring out?
I'm still figuring out how to let go of an outcome. I took a class my senior year of college that was called Design Your Life. And the best piece of advice I received came from that class. And the professor said, don't have a map, have a compass for your life. Know where you want to go, but be open to not knowing how to get there. And that really changed the way that I was thinking about building my life as a 21-year-old graduating from college. And it still helps ground me to remember, like, your specific outcome doesn't have to be the outcome. Trust, surrender, and things will come into place as they should be.
Anna, dang, what a great teacher, especially for a 21-year-old. Like, you'll remember that the rest of your life, and you're going to be able to impart their wisdom on so many people. But what a beautiful, wow. I've learned so much from you in this whole time. Last two questions. You have so much going on. You just said you were getting more speaking engagements. Your content's amazing. You're planning a wedding. What are you most excited about right now, personally and professionally?
Well, I am so excited because my fiance and I are doing a civil ceremony in just a few months here in New York. And that's going to be a few months before like a celebration of marriage party that we'll have in 2027. But for the civil ceremony, I'm so excited to have it kind of have like an iconic New York feel to it. We're going to have our immediate family here and we're starting to plan what that looks like. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm so excited. My husband and I did something very, very similar where the initial ceremony was just the two of us because it was during COVID times. Like, they wouldn't even let other people into where we got married at the courthouse. So I'm very excited for you and to have it be iconic New York. That sounds so fabulous. I can't wait. Hopefully you'll share pictures.
Yes. I have to figure out what I'm going to wear and the shoes, and that's always the fun part too.
For sure. Absolutely. And this has been so fun, Anna. Where can people come hang out with you more? Where can they find you on socials? Where can they get more of what it is that you're creating and building?
Yeah, this has been so fun. I feel like you ask such good questions. So thank you for having me. For those listening, you can come hang out on Instagram or TikTok. Anna Builds Habits. The caveat is Anna is just one N. So ANA Builds Habits. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, where I share kind of behind the scenes of building a creator brand and also share some more fleshed out ideas of how to build an identity, how to get clarity on the identity you want to embody, and then, of course, the habits that come from that. So Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
We'll make sure to put all of that in the show notes. Anna, this has been, I feel like I'm walking on cloud nine. This has been so fun for me. You are such a gem. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maddie. This has been really fun for me too.
You're the real hero if you've made it this far. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and check out the show notes for any resources or cool info mentioned in today's episode, or places to follow along if you want to hang out some more. I'm rooting for you today and always. Stay messy.